Hello guys, welcome to another video of our Node.js tutorial series. In our last video, we talked about the tools and we downloaded and installed the tools necessary. In this video, we're going to see how to run your first Node.js application, and we're going to do that here and now. So to be able to do that, we're going to first of all create a folder, a project folder in our directory, in our preferred directory, and we're going to initialize our Node.js in that directory. How do we do that? We're going to do that by opening up our terminal, and I'm going to navigate to the directory I want to create my Node.js application. Here, I'm going to my document folder. Inside my document folder, I'm going to create a folder dedicated for this series, and I'm going to call it YouTube folder, and I'm going to do that by saying mkdir. This is a script for creating a directory in Mac OS. Of course, it's the same thing if you're using Windows. Just do your mkdir space the folder name. Here I'm going to call it YouTube, and I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to navigate to this folder by saying cd YouTube. Right, so inside of this cd YouTube, I'm going to create my first React application. I'm going to create a folder called, I'm doing mkdir, and I'm going to call it first space first hyphen app, and I'm going to hit enter. Right, I've successfully created my first app. If I do ls, which is of course is going to list all the directories in this root directory. If you're using Windows, you can do dir and you hit your enter to show you all the files and directories in that particular directory. So we've successfully done this, and of course I'm going to navigate to my first app folder, and I'm going to initialize my Node application. How do we do that? I'm going to use the script called npm, which is the Node package manager we installed, and I'm going to do space init, and I hit enter. This is going to show me multiple prompts. You're seeing from here, say this utility will walk you through creating a package.json file. It only covers the most common items and tries to get sensible defaults. See npm help init for definitive documentation on these fields and exactly what you do. Of course, you see in here, say use npm install pkg afterwards to install a package and save it as a dependency in the package.json file. Press command C at any time to quit. Right, so they are asking us our package name. Of course, we're going to leave it as default. We're going to name our application first app. I'm going to hit enter. The second item is our version. Of course, the default version is 1.0.0. I'm going to hit enter. The third item is the description. We're going to describe our application, and I'm going to say this is our first YouTube Node.js application, and I'm going to hit enter. The next item is our entry point. Our entry point is basically the first file that we're going to write our Node application. This is where our application will run from. By default, it's going to give us index.js, but I prefer naming my entry point app.js. So I'm going to say app.js. But it is very, very advisable to always put your app.js in a source folder. So most persons will say src/app.js. But I'm not going to bore us with this. When we start talking about folder structures, I'm going to show us how to perfectly structure your Node application. So I'm just going to say app.js, and I'll hit enter. And of course, we don't have any test command. We don't have any Git repository. I'll hit keyword. I'll hit the next item. We have the keywords. I can just say Node.js app first app YouTube. So just random keywords. I'll hit enter. Who is the author? I'm the author, so I'm just going to write my name. No ISC license, and if you click that, it's going to give us an object based on our responses. See the description, see the version, see the keywords, and all of that. So it's asking you, is this okay? If it's okay, you click yes. If it's not okay, you click no. So I'm just going to say yes, and I'll hit enter. Of course, we have successfully created our first Node.js application. And how do we see all of this? That is the next thing we're going to do. I'm going to exit this terminal, and I'll go back to our Visual Studio Code. From our Visual Studio Code, we need to import the folder we created. So I'm going to my documents, I'm going to my YouTube, and I have one item here which is my first app, and I'm going to import it to my Visual Studio Code. Now we have the package.json file created. This file keeps track of your project settings and dependencies. When you install new dependencies, it keeps tracks of the versions of that dependencies, and of course settings of your application. So the next thing we're going to do is to see how to run our first Node application. We're going to write a program and see how to output that program in our terminal, right? But take note of this. We said our main file is our app.js, which means we need to create this file app.js, where we're going to write our first Node.js application. And how do we do that? I'm going to create a file. I'm going to name it app.js. I'm going to hit enter. So this is where we write our first Node application. So the first Node application, first script we're going to write is to just output hello, or output something, a random string. And I'm going to do that by saying console.log, which is a JavaScript method. I'm saying hello, this is our first Node.js application. Now hit save. So after this, how do we run this application? Remember, we don't have any browser. We're not running it in our browser. We're not running it in Chrome, Safari, or Firefox. We're going to run it in our machine. We will do that by opening our terminal. If I open up my terminal, you're going to see the directory where we're working from, right? So we run our application by saying node space your entry file. So my entry point is app.js, and I hit enter. If I hit enter, you're going to see the response outputted to my terminal, which is hello, this is our first Node.js application. So guys, this is how to output your program in your terminal in Node.js. This is just a simple JavaScript command that prints hello, this is our first Node.js application. Alright, you already know what console.log is. It is used to print output in JavaScript, and whatever you put inside of it is shown in the terminal, right? So let me quickly walk us through what just happened here. The Node.js reads the app.js file. It executes the JavaScript code inside of it. What is the JavaScript code in this app.js file? It is the console.log hello, this is our first Node.js application. That is the JavaScript code inside of this app.js file. Then our Node.js prints the output of this file to our terminal. No browser is involved. This is different from front end. And of course, front end will have your browsers. Here we don't have our browsers. We are outputting directly to our system terminal. So we're going to proceed with another example. We're going to see how to add two numbers and output the sum. How do we do that? We're going to create two variables. I'm going to say const a is equal to 5, const b is equal to 7, and I'm going to say const sum is equal to a plus b. Right, so I've successfully added a and b. So how do I output the sum of a and b? Remember what we did in our previous example. We say console.log, and I'm just going to add the text. I'm going to say the sum of a and b is, and I'm going to write in the sum variable. So if I save this with Control S, and I try to restart my application by saying node space app.js, and I hit enter, you're going to see the sum of a and b is 12, because of course if you add 5 and 7 it will give you 12. You just did your first calculation with Node.js and I'm so proud of you. So before we round up this video, I'm going to talk about something very important, which is of course the best practices for beginners in Node.js. These are the things you always consider as you're starting out in Node.js. One, always organize your files properly, right? In our next videos, we're going to talk about folder structures, how to structure your folders and files appropriately in your Node application. Next thing I will advise us to do is to always use clear and simple file names like app.js, server.js, user controller.js, user profile.js, login.js, login controller.js. Use names that resonate with its purpose, so when you see a file, you can predict the content of that file. And finally, I'll say run small programs often to understand how Node.js behaves. You don't wait until you write 50 lines of code, 100 lines of code before you run. For every stage, try to run your application before you go to the next stage, so you don't have lots of codes that will give you lots of bug. So at this point, I will say congratulations, you just ran your first Node.js application. And in the next video, we're going to look under the hood and understand the Node.js architecture. We're going to understand how Node.js handles code behind the scene. That is it, guys, for this video. Please don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share. If you have any question, drop in the comment section and we're going to respond to it immediately. See you guys in the next video. Bye for now.